the bottom of it with your host, Josh Moriarty.
Welcome back to the bottom of it with me, your host, Josh Moriarty. How you doing? Thanks for coming along. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. All that stuff that you're supposed to say, but I really mean it. Thank you for being here with me. Today's guest, we have Dan Nigro. He's a songwriter and producer based in LA, originally from New York. He's worked with, let's have a look here, he's worked with Kylie Minogue, Kylie Rechtshaid, Sky Ferreira, Billy Idol. He works very closely with Ariel Rechtshaid, who is a Grammy Award winner. Wrote a song with Usher. Dang, that song Climax, that's a tune. Dan's done a lot of work with him and songwriting and things like that. What else has Dan done? Let's have a look. He is a writer on the new A-Trak single, Parallel Lines, which is featuring Fantagram. He was in a band called As Tall As Lions. That's how he originally started. They were a pop rock band, I guess would be the best way to describe them. A bloody great band with some great music. So if you haven't checked that out, have a listen, alright? Google him. Dan Nigro. He's the man. So here we go. We're going to talk music, life, and all of those things in between. Enjoy. It's actually an interesting place to start. It's just with all that...
Are we rolling?
Yeah.
You've been listening to my phone? This how's it gonna start as my phone call?
I can stitch you up. Can send that through to a few people and get you in trouble.
All of a sudden, everyone's gonna
blackmail you for commercial cash. The lawsuits of all these things going on. I mean, the Ferreira one obviously is the biggest one.
Yeah.
I thought that was a little bit ridiculous. Music.
In which way did you think it was ridiculous?
I just think you can't. Because they were using the kind of same vibe of the song, right?
Right.
They didn't really, the vocal melodies were completely different. They used the same instruments, essentially,
right,
and the same kind of groove, but the chords weren't the same either. It was in a different key.
Right.
And I think the Marvin Gaye's in a minor key, their one was in a major key. So where is the line kind of drawn? But I'm interested to know what you think about that as well.
I mean, it's interesting because being a pop songwriter, everything is like directly derivative of something.
Yeah.
And most sessions that and the way that I learned to get better at songwriting, because songwriting is something obviously that you can do by yourself, and it could be really, really like introverted in a way where you spend all this time crafting this idea by yourself, and like it's very intimate and it's yours. But when you're in a pop setting, a lot of times it's very much so a collaboration in which it's not really time to like get too thoughtful, like and not in a bad way, but it's very just in the moment, so to speak. And when it's in the moment, it's very much so like, okay, there's 3 people in a room or however many people, and we're all just gonna write something right now. Even if we're not inspired by anything at the moment, and you're depressed because your girlfriend just broke up with you, and you're like coming off like a coke bender, and you're so happy because you just got like a blowjob yesterday from like the hottest girl ever, like so that all the dynamics can be like completely in like the weirdest like energies ever, but you have to come together and make something collaborative. That a lot of it becomes so influenced or derivative on something because you're just going like, okay, cool, like, do you like Marvin Gaye? Like, I like Marvin Gaye.
Yeah,
I've
always quite liked that song. Should we try and do something like
Should we do
that
something
Marvin
like that?
Gaye song? Yeah.
You know? And there's not much thought. It's like, oh, well, that's a cool vibe. Like, let's just make something like that and make it slightly different.
I mean, why did he get picked on more than anyone else? It's just because it was a huge song, so of course, if that's the case...
I think a lot of it has to do with how big the song was.
Yeah.
I think there's also some... it's weird for me because I have like a flip-flopping view on it in a weird way where I'm like, yeah, like, well, it's a fucking ripoff. I remember being in a bar, like, when the song was popular and being in a bar and what's the Marvin Gaye song? Got to give it up.
Yeah. Got to give it up.
And that came on, and I was like, oh, cool. Like, literally, my brain went like, oh, cool, Blurred Lines, like, is on. And then all of a sudden, the Marvin Gaye song came on. I was like, oh. Wow. And then I was like, wow, it really is really similar.
It is very similar.
You know?
The first thing I ever thought, the first time I heard Blurred Lines, and I can remember it, was, they're doing Marvin Gaye, Got to Give It Up.
Right.
But I thought that was cool, that it's a homage to that song. So they like that song, they've taken the vibe, and then they've written a new song over the top of it.
But at the same time, a new song over the top of it. And so that's an interesting thing, because it really...
Almost like they've taken a sample.
It's like, because at a moment it feels like it's just a sample.
Yes.
And it's like, and that's not really fair to like the people who made the genesis of it, I feel like, because it's
But
basically
with Marvin Gaye would have been ripping all them off probably as well.
maybe.
But Motown would have been...
But I always like, just like, go like, well, what, did Marvin Gaye come up with that groove?
I
don't know. Did the drummer get like paid $200 that day to just?
I reckon the drummer definitely got paid $200 that day, and that's it.
And that was
he
it.
Wasn't the one arguing for the lawsuit.
And really, he was the one who like people were ripping off, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was a fun
I don't know. I still don't know how I feel about it, because in my head, sometimes I say, well, if I can mistake it for something else, then maybe that's too far.
Yeah. Okay.
You know? If I accidentally listen to it and I think it's the other thing.
The song was very aptly named in that.
What was it? Blurred Lines.
Yeah. They're really on that thing. So you've been doing a lot of songwriting with people recently?
Doing it every freaking day of my life.
Who you been working with, mate? Any hot young stars?
Oh, they're all
old stars?
I have a good story about an old star, but maybe it's not appropriate for a podcast, but...
Oh, go on.
We can decide later.
If we need to edit it out, I can.
But, I was actually... I kind of make fun of myself sometimes, because I realize that, like, I'll be 34 next week. Mm-hmm. And that literally most days of my life, I'm just, like, hanging in the studio with girls, very, very, very attractive girls between the ages of 18 and 23. And, like, that's my life, is mainly, like, just hanging out with, like, young...
How are their brains doing?
Some of them are really good. Some of them are definitely, like... It's sad watching some people. You know, not sad. Sad's not I don't know if sad's the right word. It's tough to watch people, like, with all the technology and all, like, the competition, like, with, like, Instagram and... You know,
big time.
Snapchat, and who's got, like... It's crazy. We live in a world now where, like... People will send me artists that they like, you know, a manager or an A&R rep will send me an artist, and they won't even send me the music.
Wow,
They'll
really?
actually just send me like, hey,
so you know how popular.
Yeah, so I can see how popular. Like, oh, this person has 1.3 million
so it's
Instagram
worth working
followers.
With them.
So you should do this, and you're like, what? Like, well, what does she sound like? You know? And like that's like, I mean, I shouldn't say usually. I always like. I'd never care about like that kind of stuff, but it's interesting to know that that's like the angle that people take, and it's hard because a lot of these and a lot of times they are female. It's both male and female. For some reason, I particularly happen to work better with female artists.
Okay.
So I'll just say female for right now, but a lot of these, it's like really weird to like see like, oh, well, like I only have 90,000 followers and she's got 120,000, so that people think that she's bigger than me, but I sell more records than her. But people don't realize that because people aren't even looking at record sales, you know? So you're like, that's just weird. Like that conversation alone is just really strange, you know?
Of course.
You know, and like the labels are just like trying to figure out ways to make these people more popular on the internet, because it's really what it's about, is just being popular on the internet, you know?
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about all of this.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying I agree with it.
No, of course not. I know. It's how long does it last? You know, what is it all even? Is it even doing anything? It's just these weird, and it's all a bit junk. It's just people putting a brain fart, and then you put your brain fart onto your computer, or you take a photo, just a quick photo, but it's all even more disposable than it's ever even been. It's just about getting these quick numbers or something. And
yeah, well, the one thing that I find interesting about the internet that I really like, and I think works for a lot of artists, and people don't really talk about this or realize this, but I feel like the internet makes things just like last forever. Like it's stuck in time in a way, maybe not stuck in time, but like
You still got a MySpace page from As Tall as Lions?
I do have a MySpace page from As Tall as Lions. I actually do. And it's funny, I went to it the other day and I was like, wow, this is weird. And I'll tell you another story in a second, but what was I going to say? But basically, like, I feel like it's interesting and it works to artists' advantage because you can really build somebody in an interesting way online where it's like, it's just constantly growing because they're always in people's faces. It's not like the record labels decide like, oh, this is the artist we're going to push. I mean, they do that and it has its success and its non-success or whatever. But ultimately, like, all the numbers are there for everyone to read. Like, so I have friends in a band now and they like just got signed, but like, they're pushing a song now to radio because the song is just on Spotify and it gets like 100,000 listens a day.
Right.
And no one's ever promoted the song before. So like obviously people love this song.
Yes.
Like we have nothing to do but just watch the fact that this is real, you know?
Time Magazine.
Time Magazine. Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? It's like it's all real. Like it's like it's there. That's what it is. Like no one's telling you like this is hype or this is this. Like it's like no. Like this song actually gets this. Mm-hmm. People like this, and people are like tweeting about it, or people are blogging about it, or people are whatever. So there's nothing we can do but accept it. You know?
There's definitely a funny thing I find of bands. This isn't a negative thing either, but I find a lot of bands, everyone wants to be the band that puts out the hugest song that just blows up out of nowhere, and when they don't do it with their first or second or third single, or it doesn't happen on their first record, they get extremely disheartened, and then a lot of the time just the whole band vanishes that quickly.
Right.
I feel like the career thing has maybe been a little bit the foresight to be a career artist or whatever.
Because there's also like there's not that goes hand in hand with I think the fact that like there's not bands really, so like it's like talking about like the word band or like because a lot of it is nowadays it's just one guy or one girl or two. You see a lot of like duos nowadays. You know, I feel like it's like a solo or a duo, and you get these like. Because it's not as hard to wrangle 4 or 5 people together to make music. Like nobody wants to deal with 4 personalities. That's a lot. You know, like so nowadays you know that you can easily make something that sounds like a band without actually having a band. You know,
I find though that what lacks in that is those 4 personalities and those 4 people clashing together and recording together and. Just there's a magic in that. Well,
there's also like a point being is that like if it's just one person, like you said, like I know for myself sometimes my emotions are so fickle. Like sometimes I'm like I want to start a solo project, and then like a day later I'm like fuck a solo project. I'll never do a solo project, and your mind just keeps on changing. But if you're connected to 3 other people who's like their brain power is like equal to yours, and their decision making is equal to yours. If you feel like shitty that day and you decide you don't want to be a solo artist anymore, like you don't want to be in a band, like that doesn't almost matter because like if the other 3 people decide that you're in the band and like you got to keep on going on, like you got to get up and go to work, you know, like so it does push you further because you don't have only yourself to rely on. You're in a relationship and things can be bigger because you're in the relationship. You know, there's like a grander scope of life.
Do you miss that?
Do I miss what?
Playing in the band.
I don't. I really don't at all. Like I played my reunion shows in December and they were amazing. They went really well. I feel like I performed pretty good but like I was so like I just feel like a lot of people like get lost in the cycle of like the life of being on the road, which is like kind of like it really isn't reality. Like it's not sustainable.
Absolutely.
You know? And when like you live in that world, you get like really sucked in, and because the feelings are so like amazing, like the euphoria that you feel from like getting high from playing a show, and like the adoration or like just the connections that are made, it's just like it's so intense, it's so incredible.
Yeah, absolutely.
So people get addicted to it. I feel like it's a really addictive feeling, and then that turns into like drugs and alcohol and sex and whatever it is, like that, like are things that actually because of the energies in the room and whatever, like they just happened to happen, you know. And so like I felt myself like getting wasted and partying and like till 4 or 5 in the morning
on these few shows that you were doing.
And I'm like, who the fuck am I? Who am I like right now? Like this isn't me. And I'm like in it, and I'm like waking up like literally like on my deathbed. Like what did I do last night? You know, like what was that? You know.
Yeah.
And so like you're like, wow, like I could really get. It's really so in a way it's nice to like taste it. But you don't want to live it.
Yeah.
I don't want to live it, I should say.
Yeah, no, I've kind of toned all of that down recently as well. But it's interesting, once you stop that stuff, then you have to really question why you have to find a new way to approach touring or a new way to enjoy it, because all of those things were part of the appeal.
Of course.
A lot of
it
the
is
time.
the appeal.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
Who doesn't want to go out and like play a show? It's like people used to ask me, I'm like, yeah, like, oh yeah, we played a show in front of 2,000 people. And then there was literally 14 girls that like were just talking to me. I was like, I can have sex with either one of you. And that's weird.
Yeah.
That's like not like, it's not reality. I mean, I guess it is in the moment it's reality, but it's like, it's a weird thing to be like, oh yeah, this is... And for me, even like on a relationship level, it was really hard for me because I felt so detached from like, you know, like the intimacy of like meeting someone and like getting to know them and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Because like every night
Yeah.
you're just like, you have some really beautiful person that wants to like hang out with you and they're really interesting and cool and, you know, and it's like, it's a moment, but like you just keep on having these series of moments that like, you're just like, wait, like a year has gone by, like what just happened? I don't even like
When you kind of romanticize all of it a little bit
Yeah.
as well. Every person was maybe the one,
Yeah.
because you only got to have that one night
Exactly.
when you played in Paris or whatever it is that you've done. But the other thing is, I find with touring is you kind of, you stop growing a little bit, because if you go away for those 6 months or 3 months or whatever it is, for all that time, all you're doing is playing show, waking up, either hungover or tired or whatever it is, but you don't have much time to develop or something. It's like this kind of wasteland.
Yeah,
I mean, you get better at playing and performing, so you're obviously still growing in that respect, but in every other way, I find it very hard to actually still develop as a person.
No,
or something.
I can't do it. I decided it like a young, like I said, probably about 10 years ago. I think I got signed when I was 19, or like, I think I actually got signed when I was 20, but we started talking to the label when I was 19.
With As Tall as Lions?
With As Tall as Lions. We were 19. We were juniors we were sophomores in college. We ended up signing when we were juniors, so we've been talking to the labels for like probably a year. So starting at about 19 years old, I started getting courted by different labels, and you know, like I was just, and the fantasy, like, you know, I had grown up like listening to Nirvana and Nine Inch Nails and Pearl Jam and all these bands that I was just like, I just want to be in like the biggest rock band ever. And that was the fantasy ever since I was like 12 or 13.
Yeah.
And so now I'm 19, it's 7 years later. You're like talking to labels, they're like offering you like a bunch of money and telling you like, yeah, like we're going to like, this song could be a single and this song could be a single and we're going to get you in the studio with this guy that produced this big like band. And all of a sudden you're like, your dreams are like, holy shit, this is all happening.
Yeah, we've nearly made it.
You know, we've made it. We've actually made it. We're there. Like, I'm actually a rock star. I quit college, made a record, and it was funny because I sat around for a year, like literally for a year after the record was done. I could have finished college really easily, but I sat around in my parents' house.
I know what that one's like.
You know,
I can't. I'm in a band. It's a full-time gig. You got all of these hours that you're not doing anything. I can't. With the band, we could, at any time, we might have a show.
Yeah. So I'm like sitting around my parents' house being like, no, it's happening. Like, what's happening? You're sitting around every day. Like, what's happening exactly? Like, it's gonna happen. I'm just waiting around. And you know, it's just funny because once we started touring, it was so amazing, 20, 21, 22. But I feel like by like 24, 25, I was like,
Right.
I was like over it. I was like, wait, like, this is life? Like, I don't know if I like this. You know,
Yeah.
I had done all the things. I had like had sex with the hottest girls, like done this or done, you know, whatever it was.
Taking
and,
the drug.
Taking the
been at
drugs.
the party.
You know, like had the most fun, like played in front of shows and had every single person in the room sing along. And the whole time I felt like shit, you know?
There you go.
And it's just like, well, I guess like this is the dream, right? This is the dream. And it's not a good one.
I don't know when it Does it ever end as well? I mean, I guess the Rolling Stones have the biggest, best possible touring party, and they'd have the personal chef and their families and all these things.
Yeah, I think it's different at that level because it's really, really at that point it's like it's a financial thing. You know, I think if you really look at it like, hey, like, so we need money, we're gonna go out on tour, and we're gonna do this, and we have a business manager and a tour manager, and they're taking care of everything, and all we have to do is show up for practice, play these shows, play great, and walk away. I think that's a different thing. If you're looking at it strictly from like a business perspective, it's interesting. You could probably make it sustain for a lot longer than is it just being like this like fantasy that you're living in.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well then I guess it's just you're going to work for whatever.
You're going to work.
Whatever
You have a job, and like this is your job, and you do it well because this is what you know how to do well.
I've always felt like an oil rigger or a miner or something, where I have your 2 months on and then you have your 2 months off. You know, when you're doing it, like okay, love, sorry, I'll be back in 2 months. I got to go hit the rock and roll oil rig, and then you disappear for that time because it is quite hard work as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is really hard.
So you don't miss that.
I don't miss it at all.
So now you're just in your nice house in your studio here every day,
just
in your pajamas.
In my pajamas, I get to hang out in my pajamas. I get to drink coffee, and have a good time.
Is that why the band kind of broke up? Was those things, or it was more just four heads butting together?
No, it was probably every piece of the puzzle was shattered. Like, we didn't agree financially on things. I felt like I was always the most like business, I don't want to say business savvy. That's the wrong word. I think I was definitely the one who was like aiming towards like we should make money doing this. Like we should be doing this, and I think that honestly both sides of the coin from the way that the other guys felt and me were both like valid points. Like where I was like, I think we need to make money and not live with our parents. Like I don't feel comfortable being there. Whereas like they were like, well, we want to just take all the money we make and spend it back in the band to like make the live show better or make this better, and that's a great reason too. But I think it just was, I wasn't happy with the way it was. They weren't happy with that, so that wasn't good. Creatively, we weren't agreeing on stuff. I wanted to be in more of a pop thing. I've always liked pop music, whereas some of the other band members were like more into progressive, like instrumental music or like jazz and like other things that were not my like cup of tea. And so I think for one point it worked, and then as our taste started to like separate, each side of like the group was trying more and more to get into one thing or the other, and it just like started to turn into a place where I think nobody was happy. So
then no one listening to it can kind of relate either.
Exactly.
The whole thing gets diluted,
because it all is diluted, and the whole thing is a compromise, and compromises can be awesome.
Yeah.
But I think when it happens for too long and it gets too like too, what's the word, dichotomous or
that'll work.
It's too separated, then I feel like it's unrelatable. It's completely unrelatable, and it's hard when then you're the one making the music and you're like, well, I'm broke and I don't even like making this music. So like to me, it's like you should be doing at least one of those things.
Yeah, one of those is good.
One is fine. Like I'm broke, but I love the music, or like I hate the music, but I'm making so much money. Like either one of those are fine, But if both of them are not happening, then I feel like it's like, well, you should reassess what you're doing.
Yeah.
So
then it was straight into pop writing after that once it broke?
Not really straight out. I think I just was. You
must have been pretty burnt out.
Say it again?
Were you burnt out after?
No, I was burnt out, but I also wasn't, because like I met a friend of mine, this guy Justin, who was out here doing music, and basically I feel like from the band, because we had such creative differences, we were always fighting so much, and like I think and it wasn't the guys in my band's fault, so I'm not going to put blame on them, but they just didn't really like a lot of the ideas I was writing. And I think it really hurt my ego and my self-esteem, where like I started to think I was a terrible songwriter, and then which made me a terrible songwriter in turn, because then I wasn't confident in what I was doing, so I was questioning everything. And when that happened, it was really hard for me because I didn't feel creative and I didn't feel like I was any good in anything. But when I met, Justin was an old friend, but when I came out to LA, he is so confident and so like into what he's doing
Yeah.
that it started to rub off on me, and he would start to believe in he believed in ideas that I was doing. So stuff that if I showed it to, you know, the guys in my band, they would be like, oh, whatever, and like just kind of brush it aside. Like he'd be like, that's amazing. Like, what if we did that? And all of a sudden, like, and like it took a while. I feel like it took about a year or two, but like my confidence actually really grew with it, which was really, it's funny to think about now, like how arrogant I could be in a session with someone, like, no, that's the way it goes, like, you know, like, and I'm like, God, like, who am I? Like 4 years ago I'd be like, oh, I don't know, it could be that way, but I don't whatever you think is fine. I don't want to offend you, you know. Like nowadays I'm like, well, that sucks, so don't do it, you know. But Justin really, really helped me in that sense of, he like kind of took away the burnt outness of whatever I was feeling really jaded, it like completely went away. And I was all of a sudden really inspired.
And a bit of California sunshine, man.
And some California sunshine.
Was he working with Ariel already? How did that?
Yeah, him and Ariel had known each other for a long time. And so that's, basically Justin was kind of, I think Justin was ultimately lonely because he was working with and for Ariel. But ultimately, Ariel was always working with the artists, and Justin was like, you know, in his own studio, like writing preliminary like ideas for songs, like like little like demo snippets.
So that how it works with a lot of the bigger producers is that they have sort of understudies of sorts, or people writing music before them and then passing it on up the chain.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. Some people everybody works in different ways.
Yeah.
But like the way that our team worked was like, well, while we were like in the heart of it from like 2011 to 2013, was like very much so Justin and I would come up with like preliminary ideas, and always in collaboration with Ariel, where Ariel's like a visionary in the sense of like he'd be like, I really love this song and I love this song. Like, let's write a song that has like this drum beat, but the chords from this song, but make the vocals like this, you know, like, so he would like pick references for us.
And he's good at directing things like that.
He's amazing at directing,
right.
You know, and he would tell us to like do this or do that, and then we would, and I was actually talking to somebody about this yesterday, because on the original demo of You're Not the One that we wrote for Sky Ferreira, I'm singing the demo of it, and it's funny because, you know, like we were talking about when we were writing that stuff, how like, I was saying basically like Ariel had given us references of songs that he liked, and we literally wrote 4 songs that pretty much sounded the same before we wrote You're Not the One.
Right.
Because we were trying to write a certain feel, but it wasn't just like writing the feel, but it was like we still had to write the amazing song. You know, like, so like, and every time we would write something, he'd be like, nope, not it. You know, like, which is frustrating, but like when you have someone who's so determined and like their vision is like, no, like this is not it. Like we're close, but this is not it. You know, but we got it. You know,
a lot of hard work.
It was hard work. It was really hard work.
I guess you have been working hard for these last however many years you've been here. I mean, probably for a long time. But
a long time. No, but it's fun to do that. You know, but back to your point, it's like, yeah, different producers work in different ways. That's the way that Ariel likes to work. I know like certain people, like a lot of people like have, because Ariel's like operation is kind of small, but like some of these bigger people like, you know, Max Martin, or, you know, I have friends that work with him or for him, and other really big ones that they have like a whole like camp, like they have like a whole like compound. Not a camp is not the right word. It's like a compound of like tons of writers working in different rooms, and sometimes they'll come in and be like, okay, like that idea is good. Like,
so he comes in, Max Martin comes in.
Yeah, will come in, I think, and like, I mean, like I think he does a lot of sessions by himself as well.
Yeah.
With artists, but there's a lot of like being like, let's listen to your idea. Is it any good? Like, if it's really good, we can take it in. To like,
yeah, all right. So,
you know,
oh, it's an interesting one. Yeah, it becomes quite factory and a bit.
It is, and
but there's still inspiration. It's still.
I'll be honest with you, man. Like, I've done both, like the indie rock thing and I've done the pop thing, and I find the pop thing so much more inspiring. Mm-hmm. There's like moments where you feel like you get it, and you're just like. You feel so amazing about it.
Yeah, no, I don't have a problem with any of that.
Yeah, no, I'm saying it does feel factory, but even in that whole like clinical aspect, there's still something really beautiful about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we were doing something yesterday. I was at one of those sorts of things teamed up with two random bros. One guy with one of those X Factor dudes with a good voice, and then another producer guy. And yeah, something came together, and it was a lot of fun. And I think we got a really good song, and it could be something, so.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing about the whole thing is like that word, that phrase, like it could be something. It's like a really weird world that we live in, because as a songwriter, it literally is like it's a constant fantasy of like the potentialness of the potential of the song.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like there's so many different, which I find kind of fun because it feels like a game sometimes. You're like, if you get like all the pieces right and you write the song and you get the right artist and all of a sudden the label's behind it, and all of a sudden you're just like, yeah. We got it. We got the storm. We made it happen. And it's like, I mean, you have to just keep on doing it and doing it and doing it.
Yeah.
and it doesn't like, it's funny because I've had 4 songs come out in the last 2 weeks, I think. But prior to that, I don't think I had a song.
Nothing was landing.
No, not even landing. It's just like pieces of the puzzle, like just like
waiting for.
Like one of the songs I wrote 3 years ago, and then another song I wrote 6 months ago. Like it's just.
There's nothing linear about this career.
No, it's not linear at all.
Yeah, you spend all this within someone. You get a sync deal from a song you wrote 5 years ago or something.
Exactly.
And then I just saw the Empire of the Sun have their song picked up for something.
Yeah, and it's like now it's a hit on American radio.
Yeah, but it was already sort of a minor hit, and that was the song came out 8 years ago or something.
I think
like that.
Maybe like 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah,
right?
and then they're doing it again. So you just never know.
That happens all the time, though. And that's sometimes what I am living in the fantasy world. I feel that way sometimes about songs that I've written. I'm like, You're Not the One to me was never a hit, but I'm like, it's a hit. Like, at some point in life.
You kind of know it or knew it before you did it?
Yeah, no, when we did it, we knew. We knew the second we wrote it.
And you just got to wait for it to become a hit.
And it's funny because it's the song that gets me the most sessions. Like, people are always like, I want to work with Dan because of this song.
Right.
But the song's not a hit, And like, it's so funny because I'm like, because it is in a way, it's a weird hit. It's like this underground hit, but I always feel like sometimes somebody's gonna either like CeeLo's gonna cover it, or like someone's gonna do something to it.
Those things definitely
and all of a
happen.
sudden the song's gonna become like, oh, that song.
Well, is she still performing, Sky Ferreira? She's still doing her thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, if the artist is still going as well, then they play it at their live shows and people hear it, and all these things can still grow from that. I think once the band becomes defunct or the artist becomes defunct, the chances of that song becoming the hit get less. But if they're still performing and getting out there, then you have more chance of it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, that's that. But it's just, I mean, think about that Natalie Imbruglia song "Torn," right? That was written by 2 people in a band from like years before that, right? It was a cover. It's a cover that was by a band that nobody knew, right? And somehow those, I don't know if it was like Nigel Godrich, because I think he produced the song.
Okay.
I think I could be completely making that up.
I like it.
I feel like
wrong with it.
What's wrong with it? But that song was a massive hit. Now the people who wrote that song live in LA, and they own one of like the biggest boutique publishing companies in LA,
really?
Pulse. Because of that. Because like years later, their song was covered by a big artist, became a #1 smash.
And like still going. I heard it the other
day.
Just
still is everywhere, and it was able to create this whole thing in which like now they have like 30 writers that are under them that like are all successful. Like they like, it's crazy. Like you think about these weird things and how they like, what the butterfly effect of it is.
I'm still waiting for one of those to come through. Still waiting for that song I wrote 10 years ago. Actually, I don't know if those ones will work. They're all kind of math rock or something. That's not coming back anytime soon, eh?
Say again?
Math rock.
No, math rock, I don't think so.
No. Has the way you hear music changed now, though, when you're working on that many songs? Do you still enjoy albums or bands as much? Do you start pulling things apart more when you're listening to it?
I definitely don't enjoy music as much anymore in like a listening way. Mm-hmm. I feel like I make music more now than I ever have, and I feel inspired a lot, which is good. Mm-hmm. But in terms of like just simply listening to music for pleasure, no.
Which is what we always did when we were younger, I guess, when you're first starting out.
But I don't know if that's good. I think that's also like a fantasy of like, I think it's just like anything. It's like falling in love. It's like, the older you get and the more that you like the more relationships you have, it's like the more you understand it and the more practical it becomes.
Yeah,
you
for
know?
sure.
So I feel like it's the same thing with music. It's like you fall in love with music, and it could be the worst music. Like, you know it's not good for you. Like, it's the worst music ever, but you still like it because your friend's like, you gotta like this. And I'm like, I do like it. I do like Blink-182, right? I do. You know? And like, so like that happens, and then you start to, you're more discerning, and you start to have your own opinions about it. Because when I think about when I was younger, like, I definitely like fell in love with bands that I actually didn't like, you know?
Yeah, there's a bit of that going on.
You know,
just to fit in with everybody.
Fit in with people. I mean, Blink-182 is a big one. I remember all my friends I was like, I fucking hate this music, you know?
Well, yeah, and you couldn't, it was hard to admit that you know, I couldn't like the Spice Girls then.
Right.
My sister liked it, and I was like, oh, this sucks. And now some of those songs are some of my favorite pop songs, and will happily admit it. But when you're a 17 or 16-year-old boy, you can't say that you like. It has to be ironic.
Right.
That you can only dance to the Spice Girls ironically when you're that age. It's like, oh, this is shit, but yeah, we'll get down.
Yeah,
to it.
I was that way. I was telling a story to my friend the other day that I remember, like, I was the only one, my band, As Tall As we weren't called As Tall As Lines at the time, but in high school, there was so many musicians, but all of them were into hardcore or emo or screamo, or like of what was happening at the moment, and we were the only band that was a pop band, and we kind of were actually alienated because I was like, I like listening to like other music, and because I like listening to other music, that wasn't cool with the rest of the group. And I could feel, and I remember like one of the guys in my band, the guy that ended up leaving before we got signed, left because he like, it wasn't cool enough for him, and like he joined like a screamo band. I was like, it's so funny when you think about like, because we weren't the cool ones, you know, like, and that wasn't for him. And you're like, we live in such a silly peer pressure world of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think that stuff's kind of maybe going away a little bit these days as well, with pop becoming, dare I say it, more popular. But it's kind of, with the big stars, your Taylor Swift songs and Bruno Mars with Mark Ronson and things like that, more mainstream songs are getting accepted more in the cooler music communities or something like that. So I think being a pop art isn't really a dirty word anymore. Because for a while, maybe in my side of the world, maybe not here.
Well, I know I agree with you on one level. On a second level, we're getting older.
Yes.
So we're not. You and I are not actually part of like the youth culture anymore.
That's yeah.
So like
you're hanging out with the young girls.
No. But I'm saying, how do I know? How do we know at 30? What are you? 32? What are you?
Yes, 33 in a few months.
So like we're not 18. Like we don't know what like really goes on in the mind of a high school.
No, we don't,
like people who are like first starting their DJ groups or their bands. Like how do we really know what's like considered to be like selling out or not selling out or cool or not cool? We only are in touch with what the pop culture is because we're part of it now.
Yes.
You know? So it's hard to say. But yeah, I would tend to agree with you that like, yes, like it's becoming like more
acceptable.
More acceptable to be like pop, you know? But I don't know if it's just because we're actually getting older, and that's what happens when you get older.
Well, even just in this writing sessions yesterday, they've teamed a whole bunch of people together, and everyone's trying to write a pop smash. No one was doing any rock and roll or anything like that. It was just everyone trying to write pop songs. And I think because everyone does, it is fun to do that when you get a few people together to try and write something like that. It's
great. It's so much fun.
Do you what keeps you going? What drives this thing? Is it just songs coming into your brain all the time? I'm just wondering why we do this, or why.
I mean, I think what keeps me going.
Yeah, what drives you to make music all the time? Do you trying to change the world? Do you care about making anyone else happy? Is that why you do it? Is it all just self-satisfying?
I think it's
all of it.
Okay, it's all of it. No. I'm not trying to change the world. I'm definitely not, like, my ego isn't that big. Mm-hmm. It's pretty big, but it's not that big. For me to be, this is something that I actually have this conversation with. This is like really, really existential.
Yes, okay. That's what I'd like to go there.
Okay.
Hit me.
So I've had this conversation with a lot of my like songwriting or musician friends, and to me, I personally, as an agnostic, I don't know what's out there in this world. I don't think I ever will know. I don't think, because I don't understand like what the meaning of life is, and if there is a meaning of life, I feel like everyone has to kind of like pick their thing that they do and just do it and do it fucking awesome. And because there's no like real point. So like for me, music, I'm really good at it.
Yes.
And I really like it. So like I just go for it.
That's enough.
Because I love doing it. I don't know for any other reason is that like I need to eat and like live, and I know things that make me happy and things that don't make me happy. So I like to have money and like have a good time, and I like my friends and my family, and I like to eat good food, and like this is something that I can do to sustain that lifestyle as well as enjoy it while I'm doing it. I like to do it. So that's what drives me.
Yeah.
Is the unknowingness of this world, and that like I'm gonna have to do something. I can't sit around and think. And every time that I
have to do something.
Every time I've sat around and really start to think about it, where like I'm like, am I doing this for this reason? Am I doing that? Should I be doing something else? I start to get really depressed, and then get into like a weird world where I'm like not helping anybody. And like that's when you start to become
going through a bit of this recently.
When you get really selfish, and then you're actually just being really selfish, and like that's not a way to live your life, you know.
It kind of compounds on top of you, and you feel guilty about feeling guilty, and then you feel bad about feeling bad, and it's sort of.
Those are not feelings that I like to feel. I've had all those feelings.
Yeah.
I don't like to.
But
feel
you're in a good place with it at the moment.
And lately, I've been in a really good place. I mean, I have been actually for like the last couple of years. I feel like I've been. I think I have, like everybody, like naturally just being a human being, like you have like ups and downs. I definitely think like literally like probably 2 weeks ago I was like, what am I doing with my life? But they're like moments, but it's a moment. It's like, it's a feeling, and you have to understand that it's a feeling that happens and it passes. And like, I think, they constantly come into my brain. But I feel like that's really natural for everybody.
That'll happen forever and for
forever.
everybody.
And you accept it. As long as you accept it and go like, okay, like this is happening, you know, yeah.
Do you have an end goal? Is there a final thing?
No, I think that's actually something I'm still trying to figure out, is if there is an end goal, because, I always tell people I do have a fear, like, which maybe this is a fear that a lot of people have, but. And I've talked to people, and sometimes people like laugh at me when I say this, but I definitely have this fear of being like irrelevant, you know, and
I think we all do a little bit actually, and
not in the greater scheme of like when I die, will people remember? It's not that type of thing. It's like it's more about when I'm alive, like oh, am I gonna be like 42 and like in a writing session and be like, oh fucking damn, that fucking dude, like. It's got to get over this shit. You know, like, you know when you meet, because you meet people and you're like, why are they still doing this? You know, like, for whatever reason, whether it's like they have money, they shouldn't be doing this, or like they're like, obviously they're past their prime and they really suck and they like don't realize how bad they are. You know, like, whatever, there's a million reasons for like why somebody should stop doing what they're doing. But there are times that people should stop doing what they're doing.
Sure.
I know people could argue like, well, if it makes you happy, like, never stop, you know? I guess that's a really good point, too.
Yeah, that's nice as well.
But sometimes when you feel like when you're, like, pushing yourself on people so much, and it's just like, Jesus, stop pummeling me, you know? So I have that fear of, like, being that person, you know? And so, I don't know, the end goal, like, in my fantasy world, I'm 33, that, like, by, like, 40, I will have, like, done all the things I've wanted to like do on a real like goal-based music level, and that like I can kind of just like do like things that are more just like entertainment based and like live like, I don't know. And I also like, there's a million things I love cooking, I love gardening, I love like, I'm like, maybe I'll like buy a house with like on a
so
farm.
You do have other interests.
Yeah, I have other interests for sure. Like I can't imagine. I know that I'll do music for the rest of my life. I don't know if I'll do it as a career for the rest of my life.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I'm stuck in this thing for a long time.
Yeah, you kind of feel like you're stuck. Yeah, which is fine.
No, not in a bad way. It's the same thing. I love doing it, and I don't really know what else to do. And I have those moments of of doubting it and questioning things, but most of the time I'm pretty cool with it.
Right.
So I just got to keep going.
Yeah, you keep going.
Well, I found a hobby, and it's doing podcasting and interviews. It's
there
nice
you go.
I found something else to do.
And you like it.
Yeah, I do like it. I needed something else to do. Outside of music, I don't really, I mean, apart from watching TV shows like everybody does.
Right. It's hard to find things. I mean, it's something that I started when I started going to therapy last year, like to deal with all these issues that we talk about, like I started to realize like, oh, I need to like find more things that I like doing, like because I was realizing like I was using music as an escape.
Yes.
Like people use music as an escape from reality, and it's really easy for like, especially as a songwriter or a producer, to like just get lost in working on a song for days, and like you don't really have to face like the fact that you're alive, that like you're not feeling anything, you're just like you're like in a moment, you're stuck in a moment for days. And pop music itself is addicting. It actually is addicting on the brain. So it's actually satisfying to be listening to the same thing over and over again. Like it's like sets off chemicals in your brain so that if you're sitting there in front of a computer working on an 8-bar loop of something, that actually to you feels somewhat of like it's soothing,
Okay.
So like, you're looking at me funny, like.
No, not at all. I'm just thinking about it.
Yeah. So I feel like people are really good at like getting lost because they can actually they can find actual. I don't think it's happiness, but there's like a chemical that it's releasing that's making you go like I'm okay here.
It is addictive as well, and there's that chase for the. You get so excited when you start a new song and it's feeling good, and then you work your ass off to get it finished, and then by the time it's done, you're kind of, all right, where's the next one? I need to write the next one, and then you just kind of keep going and going.
Yeah.
Hey, I think that might be it, my friend.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that'll probably do us. Thanks for making the time. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Can I take this thing off now?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
There you have it, Dan Nigro, ladies and gentlemen. What an infectious laugh that man has. A lot of strong opinions as well, and I like that about him. He knows what he thinks, and he's not afraid to say it. If you haven't, like I mentioned before, check out As Tall as Lions. They got a self-titled album. That's the one I'm the most familiar with, and that's the one I'd recommend. Came out in 2008. It's Boss, so cop that one. He also just wrote a song with a band called Junior, a song called Gone, which is all over radio in the States at the moment. It's a great pop tune. Give that a listen. Yeah, get familiar with Dan Nigro. I reckon you're going to be seeing a lot more of him in the future. Thanks again for tuning in. You've been listening to The Bottom of It with me, Josh Moriarty. Awesome. Keep coming back. Plenty more. Cheers. Bye-bye.